existing conditions, and then.
Okay.
Okay, Gary.
Thank you.
Okay, Gary, you can go.
Good evening, everyone. This meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Union is being held pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Law C-231, Laws of New Jersey, 1975. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the local source and the Star Ledger, the newspapers of record, and notice has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building adjacent to the municipal clerk's office. This meeting has also been posted on the township website, confirming that in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens pursuant to standards promulgated by law to address the corona pandemic, it will be held by online virtual means and telephonically only. Before we continue with the meeting, I just want to state for the public's benefit that this will be our last Zoom meeting. Our next meeting, which will be held on April 13th, will be held live and in person in the municipal building on Morris Avenue. Roll call, Mr. Manguso.
Mr. DiGiovanni is absent. Mr. Howe.
Here.
Mr. Wiley.
Here.
Miss Alexander.
Here.
Miss Martins.
Here.
Mr. Bentavegana.
Here.
Miss Scott.
Here.
Mr. Champy.
Here. There being a quorum present, this meeting is now declared open. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the March 2nd minutes of the last meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the March 2nd minutes from the last meeting.
Can I have a second?
Second.
We're going to have a reading. Don't you want to dispense with the reading?
Yes, and included in that motion, I'd like to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Mr. Manguso, are there any communications?
There are no communications, Mr. Chairman.
All right, our first and only order of business this evening is calendar number 3394, Max and Hyundai Incorporated, 2329 Route 22 West and 1010 Gelb Street, Block 3210, lots 2.01 and 5, automobile dealership, parts and service building. Mr. Hale, would you like to proceed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And echoing what Mr. Chiusuli said, we truly appreciate the board having a special meeting this evening. There were time constraints with respect to the new dealership. And again, really appreciate you hearing us tonight. And by the way, I am looking forward to seeing everyone in person in a couple of weeks. It'll be great to have face-to-face. So just very briefly, by way of background, this is a project where the Maxon dealership, which has for years been a combination of Hyundai and the Mazda dealership, they're now proposing to demolish the existing building and now make it a Hyundai dealership. Existing structure is approximately 10,800 square feet, and a new 13,000 and change building is being proposed. As Mr. Chiusuli will explain when he testifies, the logistics of the new requirements of the dealership limited it to one brand, and they've selected the Hyundai. It's an attractive new building. It's another great investment into the Township of Union. We're here before this board because, and as noted in the Collier's letter, technically we believe that the sales and service is permitted on Route 22, but the proximity of service facilities to other service facilities is limited as a conditional use. So, but our professional planner will touch on any of the variances associated with the application. Many of the variances are also existing conditions. Again, we're just essentially upgrading the facility. We have had an opportunity to review the Collier's letter, the most recent letter dated March 21, 2022. No issues, and our professionals will address those. We also did receive today, and thanks to Tiffany, we received a report from Georgia Lou from the fire. And again, our site engineer will touch on that. There's no problem complying and making sure we have adequate access to the site. So, Mr. Chairman, that's an overview of the application. As I indicated at the outset, we're going to have Josh Tyner, our site engineer, take us through first the existing conditions and then what's proposed by way of improvement. Move on to Marco De Sosa, our architect, to explain the floor plans and elevations. Seated to my left, Mr. Michael Chiusuli will address the operational information. Craig Paraguay, who's testified many times before this board, will take us through the traffic study, and then Nicholas Graviano will justify any of the variances. So if there's no preliminary questions, Mr. Champion, I call upon Mr. Joshua Tyner.
Yes, for the record, Mr. Hale, it's Rob Pansula, the board attorney. I did mark A1, the application as it was submitted, which would include the amended statement of principal points. A2 is the site plan as revised through March 4th of 22, which consisted of 8 sheets for the engineering site plan. And then if A3 is the 4 pages of architectural plans done by Roberto Martinez. I think both are generated through Redcom. The architectural plans are 4 sheets. And then A4 is traffic impact communication from Dynamic revised through March 8th of 2022. So that's A1 through A4 for the record as we start. I've discarded the original submissions because they've been upgraded, so I don't think I need to mark them and make them part of the record.
Great, I appreciate that, Mr. Pansula.
Okay, Mr. Tyner, can you hear me? It's Rob Pansula, the board attorney.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do. It is.
And for the record, just state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
Joshua Tyner. That's JOSHUATINER. And I'm the VP of Engineering at Redcom Design and Construction LLC, located in Westfield.
Mr. Tyner, if you could briefly provide the board with your credentials, area expertise, licenses you hold, and whether you've been accepted before boards or courts of the state of New Jersey as an expert in the field of engineering.
Yes, I graduated from Penn State University in 1995 with a Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering. I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey since 2003. I've testified before dozens of boards. I don't believe I've been before this board, but I do believe I was testified before the Township of Union Planning Board many years ago. But yeah.
We'll accept Mr.
My
Tyner's
licenses are
qualifications.
actually active as well.
Great.
Mr. Tyner, we'll accept your qualifications. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Tyner. All right, Mr. Tyner, if you can take us through, as I've indicated, and provide overview of the existing conditions, and then we can move on from an engineering standpoint, and then what's proposed by way of improvements.
I'd like to share my screen if that's okay.
And if you do, just identify what exhibit you're putting up, and if it's an exhibit that has not been submitted before, and it's a illustrative exhibit, just please identify it so we can mark it.
Yes. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is an aerial exhibit of the area surrounding. This has not been submitted prior, so it would be a new exhibit. What would we mark that as?
A5.
A5. Okay. So, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of glitching here, but everything okay on your end? Good.
Yep, looks fine.
Okay, so if you're traveling westbound from the Garden State Parkway, approximately a mile, a little more than a mile, going westbound, you encounter Gelb Avenue, which is on the north side of Route 22, and the Maxon series of properties are there between Gelb Avenue and right prior to this Lidl grocery chain that's being put in next door. So basically, this is in the BC zone and the I zone on the site. So just the properties in question are block 2301, lots 2.01 and 5. Lot 2.01 houses the existing Maxon Mazda sales building. And lot 5 houses the existing service buildings for both Maxon Hyundai and Mazda, plus a separate building that houses existing service for Maxon Buick GMC. Lot 23.09, lot 1 houses several buildings. That's up here in the triangle, which they control. Maxon also has lease agreements with NJDOT, which allows for parking and usage on these long aisles of right-of-way, which were prior Rahway Valley rail lines. And I think on the tax maps, they are block 200, lot 2, and block 300, lot 1. And then lot 4, which is also here on the corner, not really part of the application, but that's the Buick GMC property that Maxon has control of. The property address for the site in question is 2329 Route 22 West in Union, New Jersey. Block 2310, lot 2.01 is situated on the north side of Route 22, and lot 5 is set back behind it with frontage on Gelb Avenue. Lot 2.01 is in the BC retail business zone, as I mentioned, and lot 5 is in the I industrial zone. I'll mark a second exhibit as our A6. And this is a rendering of the site plan, really zooming in on the area of work where we're going to be doing proposed work. Maxon doesn't control this lot 4, which is in between 2 of their facilities, but it's a liquor store currently. And the proposed conditions on lot 2.01 are for the it's for the purpose of removing the Mazda dealership and upgrading the site for rebranding image of Hyundai at the Maxon Union location. Speaking with respect to some more existing conditions, lot 2.01 is a 0.92 acre lot, and it contains an existing 10,802 square foot building. Lot 5 behind it is a 3.9 acre lot and contains 3 buildings, a 14,460 square foot building that provides service for the Buick dealership, 12,979 square foot building, which provides service for the Maxon, Hyundai, and Mazda currently, and a 1,095 square foot garage, respectively, on that site. There's 2 access points, driving access points into the lot 2.01 from Route 22. That's here and following after. They're both on the south side. And then lot 5 is accessed. There's actually access off of Gelb Avenue, but you can also access lot 5 by coming around other parts of the site off of 22, passing by lot 2.01. The site contains circulation features, parking, loading areas, site lighting, and some limited landscaping features. Parking analysis is somewhat complicated due to the shape of the lots and the lease agreements that the applicant has with NJDOT, coupled with some of the parking being stacked throughout the property. However, we're representing basically in the application the appearance of 57 existing parking spaces on lot 2.01 as currently striped and reflected on the survey. There are 51 spaces currently on lot 5 associated with at least our area of work. The site plan proposes upgrades to circulation features such as asphalt replacement, striping, parking, and site lighting. Also being proposed as a part of the application, as I zoom in here, is an area over here, which is in the NJDOT controlled right-of-way, formerly Rahway Valley, where Maxon currently leases and is able to park inventory. Just an area for a temporary tent structure that they will, during construction, function out of for the sales and service portions of the operation. In terms of proposed conditions, the application is proposing a new 13,600 square foot Hyundai sales and showroom building on lot 2.01. There will be the removal of a small garage, which was kind of alluded to earlier, which is located on lot 5. That's a 1,095 square foot demolition and removal. And the 12,979 square foot existing service building is going to be reduced by 2,001 square feet down to 10,978 square feet. So the total reduction of building on lot 5 is 3,096 square feet. The use, the automobile car dealership is an existing non-conforming use that requires variance relief. And lot 5 has the 2 to 3 existing buildings that require variance relief, and it still will be 2 in the proposed scenario. The repair garage on lot 5, I understand, doesn't strictly comply with the conditional use requirements of section 170-140 of the ordinance that requires variance relief. That's in terms of conditions for this type of garage facility. So in terms of parking being proposed, we are currently proposing 55 parking spaces, which can be seen striped within the lot. Again, this is the dark part here is the actual shape of this very small lot here. And so we are able to fit 55 new parking spaces on there, including a couple that are kind of overlapping into what they are currently under a lease agreement with the DOT on. The required parking, as I mentioned, was 55. We have 36 proposed. I might have misspoke a moment earlier. If I said we proposed 55, the required is 55, the proposed is 36. The required parking on lot 5, which is this larger lot over here off of Gelb Avenue, is 88 spaces, and we have 92 proposed within our area of work. That parking analysis for 88 and 92 is associated with really this building and this portion of the operation. That part of the analysis did not take into account the GMC service building or any of these parking spaces that are available off onto the back of lot 5. There's 20-foot long parking spaces are required on the site, but in several cases we have 18-foot spaces. 18 are only allowed if you have a 2-foot overhang, and not in every case do we have a 2-foot overhang available, so there's variance relief required for that. We're proposing electrical vehicle parking spaces here. You can see 2. Actually, I could zoom in a little to make it easier for everyone to see. This is a little logo that represents electrical vehicle parking spaces. Back in July of 2021, the state required electrical vehicle parking. And so 5 are required. We have 6 proposed on this plan. However, there may be a few additional EV spaces added as Hyundai wants actually there to be some more on the site, which will actually benefit the environment. So in that case, it doesn't change the number of parking spaces. It just makes them dedicated or available as electrical vehicle parking spaces. The state law does actually require or allow you to make EV parking spaces make ready, which means that you only have to bring the electrical infrastructure to the location. However, we understand they're going to propose and install the electrical vehicle infrastructure so that these can be active immediately as electrical vehicle parking spaces. ADA parking for handicap is proposed as required, and the facility is not expected to create a material impact to truck circulation or anything of that nature. And we've created an emergency vehicle apparatus circulation plan just to satisfy Colliers with respect to some truck circulation. I might bring that up very quickly. This would be, I guess, A7. Is that right? Just
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry, I was muted.
This just shows that the emergency vehicle apparatus would be able to come in through the first entrance off of Route 22. It could also actually come through here off of Gelb Avenue and would circulate down and around and come down through the new aisle adjacent and on to 22. But also, since we have that temporary tent structure and we did receive the comments from the fire official about having full circulation, we just wanted to prove out on this exhibit that that vehicle can also circulate and get back out to Route 22 with full circulation around the site. And there's no problem with the 20-foot requirement that he referred to in his letter. Speaking with respect to bulk requirements on this property, minimum required lot area of 40,000 square feet on lot 2.01 is complied with by the fact that this is a 40,106 square foot lot. 80,000 square feet is required on lot 5, and that's complied with by the 169,187 square foot existing and proposed lot 5. The required lot width of 200 feet, which is required on lot 2.01 and lot 5. 2.01 does not comply with this. It has an existing 190.25 width, which remains in the proposed condition, so it requires variance relief. Lot 5 complies with a 557 square length, 557 foot width. Required lot depth, 200 feet is required on lot 2.01, and we comply with that with a 243 foot depth. 400 foot depth on lot 5 is not complied with, as 253 feet is the existing depth of the lot 5, and so that requires variance relief. The front yard setback of 50 is required on both lots 2.01 and lot 5. 2.01 complies with both the existing 69.6 existing and an 83.3 foot proposed setback. 83.4 on this exhibit, but it's 83.3, I believe, is what is on the plan. Lot 5 does not comply with the existing 23.3 foot setback. That's in a location over here. It's lost my place here. It's 22.3. Oh, it remains unchanged. Yeah, 22.3 is what this dimension is. Yeah. The side yard setback of 20 feet is required on lot 2.01, and 6 foot side yard setback is proposed. Over here, requiring variance relief, 25 is required on lot 5, and it exists at 4.8 feet. That's in here. There's a 4.8 feet side yard setback between that and this lot. So that requires variance relief. The rear yard setback is 50 feet required on lot 2.01 and lot 5. 15.8 feet is proposed on lot 2.01. That's around here. And on lot 5, there's a 0.4 setback between that existing garage that's being demoed. And so then in the proposed condition is 9.5 feet here to the corner. And so that requires variance relief, even though it's an approved setback situation. Building height requirement 35 feet. There's 3 stories. And on lot 2.01, the limitation is complied with a 27-foot tall building, 1 story. On lot 5, it's a 45-foot and 3-story limitation. And the existing buildings do comply with the height and the stories limitation. And that's not going to change in the proposed. Building coverage, there's a 30% maximum required on lot 2.01. The existing building is 26.9%. It's actually misrepresented on the plans that were submitted because canopies were included in that calculation. It said 34%, but the existing is 26.9, and the proposed is 34 with the building footprint, so that requires variance relief. And we understand that canopies and overhangs are not included in the building coverage calculation. If they were to be included, then that building coverage would be 44.2%, because there's some eaves, overhangs in the front of the building, and then 2 separate distinct canopies in the rear of the building that cover the delivery area for the cars and the exit area coming out of the service drive-through. Floor area ratio requirement, 40% max is required on lot 2.01. The existing and proposed both comply, having 34% being the proposed condition. And lot 5 being in the I zone does not have a floor area ratio requirement in the zoning. Maximum impervious coverage is 80% max, and that's the limitation. And on both 2.01 and lot 5, there are currently existing 100% impervious sites that will continue to be 100% impervious in a proposed condition. So that requires variance relief. Some other just site layout features of note. There's a minor change that's going to be required. There's actually a door here on the side of the building that allows the showroom vehicles to be accessed in and out. At the time when we put this plan together, we thought that was a man door only. So this little area of an island is going to end up being striped and asphalted. Just for everyone's understanding, the green areas here that we see is light green. That's actually artificial turf, so it's not really a proposed impervious condition. All of the impervious grassed areas are actually off the property out in the right of way and or up here on other lots on the site. Another point is the mention that I made earlier about the EV vehicles, which might exceed the required, but they're still comply with the parking. With respect to lighting, there's new lights being proposed on portions of the building with some existing pole-mounted lights, site lighting to remain. The lighting was done to show the new lighting would meet the minimum requirements. The existing, which will not change, was not analyzed. The lighting is understood to be compliant, as noted. This is item number 8.6 of the Collier's letter dated 3/21/22. And we are comfortable working with Collier's to satisfy any additional lighting review comments if applicable. With respect to landscaping, the existing sites, both lot 2.01 and 5, have very minimal landscaping on site. Within Route 22, right away in front of lot 2.01, there is some plantings, but nothing exists or proposed on the site. In front of the proposed Hyundai buildings, as I mentioned earlier, is the artificial turf. And this is also below the overhang, so it wouldn't really get water or rain anyway. With respect to refuse removal on the site, just all the conditions of the strategies and functionalities of refuse removal are going to remain as is in the post-developed condition. So there's no new trash enclosures or anything provided or proposed. It's all just going to function as it currently does. With respect to drainage and utilities, general drainage patterns and connections to utilities will remain consistent with the existing. Any connection requirements will be met and items requested by Colliers will be shown on the plans as conditions of approval, which is still in the process of being obtained. And when I say what's being in process of being obtained is some information that the surveyor needs to provide to satisfy Collier's letter. But all that information will be provided. Signs is definitely a big part of this discussion. So I just wanted to open up another exhibit just to talk about signage. This is a rendering that the architect may refer to in a little while, but it's basically a 3D perspective of what this building will look like. So just with respect to signage, that things worth noting on the plans, there's 4 proposed signs on the building. This is a service sign here with a logo, a Hyundai sign with the logo here above on the canopy or overhang as it's called, the signage that refers to Maxon, the dealer, and then there's a small sign in the building left of the door which also says Hyundai. So there's those 4 signs being proposed, and variance relief is therefore required because only 1 sign is permitted on the building.
Excuse me, Josh?
Yes.
I hate to interrupt you. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
The sign that looks like this, my name is Anthony. This is the zoning officer and construction official.
Mm-hmm.
The sign on the building,
Yes.
on the roof,
Oh, yes.
that's prohibited.
That's prohibited. So,
According to our ordinance, it's prohibited.
yes. Yeah, I guess that would be called a 5th sign. That's an existing sign that's on the existing building. Here's actually another exhibit. We should mark that last exhibit as A8.
Okay.
The rendering.
Here's my
correct?
take on that. Is
Sure.
it coming down when you're doing the building?
It's coming down during the building because it's attached to the building.
And it's gone.
But they do want to relocate it and reinstall it on the proposed building.
Well,
That's why it's shown in the rendering. So that's
okay. Well,
That's
I'll have to
what
get
the
some
application-
clarity on that because it's prohibited. And once it comes down, in my opinion, unless, Mr. Hale sees it differently, it's once it's down, it's down. That's it.
right. Well, I'm sure Mr. Hale and the planner and the owner can speak to it, but the application as it stands is proposing that it be reinstalled on the building.
It is the existing sign, correct? This is Rob Pansula, the board attorney. It's what's existing. It's just coming down and being reinstalled in essence.
Yes, that's the proposed intent, right? Not
So the
not
function
not a new
and-
sign, not a replacement sign, a temporary removal and reinstallation.
So the visual will be the same, the way the sign is used, the way the sign, the square footage, everything else?
Correct. I suppose the height could fluctuate a little just due to the fact that the roof mount of the existing building may not be the exact same height of the proposed. And so but the mounting of it would be all, I understand, to be the same apparatus to support it. So that's the proposed intent. And so this, I kind of flip back and forth, but this existing signage exhibit is worth calling A9, is that right?
You're doing another exhibit, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the architectural rendering would be A8, is that correct?
That's correct.
So then an existing signage exhibit is A9. And so I bring this up just to show.
That's actual, right? That's not a rendering, the A9?
Yeah, this is an actual, right. This is an actual photo exhibit of the actual current conditions, which show that there's a Hyundai sign, which is 38 feet high, approximately. And that's located, if I'm referring back to the site plan, that's located over here. It's technically in what DOT, they lease from DOT, that portion of the site. And then this Mazda sign, which is, and both are proposed to be removed completely, and one is proposed to be replaced. But then, so that one is being replaced with this Hyundai Maxon sign here, which is a pole mounted sign. And this sign is proposed at 45 feet. And so a 30-foot sign is coming down and a 38-foot sign is coming down. And one sign in the location, approximate location of this Mazda sign is being proposed as a freestanding sign. So anyway, back to what I was speaking, let me just get back to my notes on the building mounted signage. There's variance relief required for this very small Hyundai sign, just due to the fact that it's supposed to be, building mounted signage is not supposed to be less than 8 feet off the ground, and it's something like 4 feet off the ground. This sign, the Hyundai sign, which on our plan is called HS3, with the logo, requires variance relief for the max vertical dimension of 4'9" 5/16 inches. 4 feet is the maximum on that sign that's permitted. Lot 5 has just a single new sign being added to the service building. It's a parts sign. If I look here on, I guess this could be technically A10, which would be an exterior elevations of the parts building, SK10B. A10, just so we can walk through it. SK10B.
Is that part of the existing site plan?
This is the intent of the site plan. I think this exhibit might not have been submitted, as it's overriding one of what was actually submitted. That sign here, though, as shown on the site plans, is this parts sign over top of the door. And then on my site plan, that would be in this location here. So there's a proposed door over here area, and there's a parts sign on this building that's being added. So that's the intent in terms of building mounted signage. So speaking to the freestanding / monument and ground mounted signage, I did already go through the main rendering. I'm going to go back to the actual site plan set. So I don't think we need to mark this as an exhibit because it's a part of the set. This is just our signage plan, and it's a lighting and signage plan. So it shows the details of each of the signs that we talked about. And except for these 3 directional signs. There's a directional sign here called HS9, and that's located here off of Route 22. So you would come in here and see that sign as you enter the first entrance. And you would see that it's basically telling you that the showroom is to the left and service and parts are straight ahead. And these are dimensions of the sign in the plans. These other 2 directional signs are directional HS7 and HS8. one that says parts is located over here. That's if you were driving around the back of the building, you'd see a parts sign, so you'd turn here and go into the parts area. If you were this sign here, which is HS7, says showroom service to the right and parts straight ahead. That'd be if you came in off of Route 22. On the second entrance, you see that sign here, which is telling you the showroom is to the right and parts and service, or showroom and service is to the right and parts is to the rear, because that would be a waiting. The service is entered this way. So in both of these cases, that service extension is off to the right. We're with 2 doors for people to come in. It's 2 deep, so that people can drop off their car and service writers can serve them. And then the staff takes the car away and places it in either a parking space for queuing or maybe one of these stacked parking spaces. Again, if you looked at the rendering, you can see the service entrances as you can see it coming off of 22. So I mentioned the heights of the existing signs and the proposed pole-mounted sign. The new proposed pole-mounted sign is approximately 7 feet taller than the existing sign that's being removed that says Hyundai on it. The freestanding sign is approximately 12 inches from the right-of-way line, which may require relief from the 15-foot ground-mounted sign setback requirement. Maximum size of the freestanding sign is 50 square feet. That's the maximum permitted, and the proposed sign is 135 square feet. Then my other notes were just to talk about the relocated digital sign, which requires variance relief. And in terms of architectural, the architect will speak to that later. Review letters. So we reviewed the fire officials, George Elou's memo dated 3/30/22. And as I shared earlier with the fire truck turning circulation exhibit, we don't have a problem complying with his requirements. And we also reviewed the Collier's Joseph Venecia's engineering memo dated 3/21/2022. We had a few conversations with representatives from Collier's office, and we anticipate that we'll be able to comply with all their requirements. I just want to note a few of the things from the letter worth speaking about. Item 4.3, we believe the plan submitted will provide adequate detail to show compliance with ADA, but regardless, we're comfortable with working with Collier's to make sure they're satisfied in this regard. Item 4.4, the additional detail of the storm sewer is in the process of being received from the surveyor. That will be provided as a condition of approval. Item 4.5, the applicant's attorney will work with us to obtain copies of the 10-foot wide storm drainage easement. Regarding 5.1, as for testimony with respect to how the parking demand will be met, as I did mention earlier, this is a complicated site in terms of parking, just because there's control of leases on what appear to be off-site areas, but they have functioned in this fashion for many years. This will continue to function very similarly with the improvements of adequate additional space in the front for more circulation area, giving full width 2 turning movements in front of the store, and then some other parking spaces around the sides of the building. As mentioned earlier, they have rights to park through NJDOT via a lease on, I guess that's block 200 lot 1 and block 300 lot 1, the former railroad line. Additionally, inventory is understood to be stored on block 23.09 lot 1 with some other tenants, but there's they park vehicles back there, and they understand their business and how they can adequately handle parking. And I think this is going to be actually a better customer experience in terms of parking around this building in the proposed condition. Regarding item 5.5, stacked parking is proposed for use by vehicles scheduled for service, but it may occasionally be utilized for inventory parking, possibly, but it's not intended for customer parking. Item 6.1, additional detail with respect to sanitary sewer is in the process of being obtained from the surveyor. Item 6.2, the developmental impact assessment form was intended to be submitted in paper form as well as electronically, and it will be submitted as a condition of approval. It's worth noting, and our plans actually also showed the calculation on, I believe, sheet 5, that there's a projected 479 gallon per day increase based on NJAC 7:14A-23.3 projected flow criteria. That equates to approximately 0.0008 CFS, which is a negligible amount of flow, but truly, in practical terms, I don't think the actual anticipated projections in practice of this site should be anticipated to differ at all from the current functionality and uses of sanitary sewer. It's worth noting that the existing sanitary connection was not available on a survey. This is with respect to item 6.4. So a proposed connection to the manhole was shown. However, if the existing connection can be maintained and reused, that would be the intent. Regardless, if there's not already an existing easement in place to obtain maintenance off the features between this property and lot 4, the applicant with their attorney will work to put these in place. Item 6.5 is noted above. The sanitary sewer impact assessment form will be resubmitted in paper form. Regarding item 7.3, access driveways are shown on the plans. Regarding item 7.4, as I had already shared, the emergency apparatus vehicle exhibit will be resubmitted to Colliers for their review. But we did discuss this with them prior to the hearing, and so we anticipate that they'll have no problems with that exhibit. Regarding 8.1, it's worth noting that the plans will indicate that all areas around the proposed work will comply with ADA regulations. Regarding 8.2, Somerset Union Soil Conservation District certification will be obtained. Regarding 8.3, signage details are reflected on sheet 6. Item 8.4, zoning table and list of variances on the cover sheet will be revised to reflect all the up-to-date information as a result of whatever we come to with the hearing. And regarding item 8.5, the utilities will be shown on our revised plans. But again, with those discussions with the Colliers representative, the concern was for the need of easements for cross-access and maintenance of any utilities. So all that will be buttoned up, and if these existing easements aren't already in place and recorded, then we'll work with the attorney to develop and require any required easements to address all the proposed conditions. And then lastly, item 9.4, it's worth noting that we have received a county letter of no interest on September 23rd, 2021, NJDOT letter of no interest on December 8th, 2021, which our traffic consultant may testify to, and the Soil Conservation District certification is pending, but we anticipate that any day, as their most recent comments have been minimal. And so we anticipate compliance with that shortly. And I think that is it for my direct testimony. And I'm open for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Tyner, for
Yes, thank you,
your
Mr. Tyner.
report. At this time, are there any board members that would like to question Mr. Tyner?
Yes, Donna. Mr. Tyner, did you actually say that in lot 5, it started out with 51 parking spaces and we now have 32, and those 19 parking spaces were moved to what, lot 2.01? This is a lot of information. And do you need those parking spaces for customers, or is it to place cars there? Because you did say a couple of times that it was a trouble area in terms of parking. So did those parking spaces, were they used for us as customers, or is it to bring a fleet of cars in? I'm a little confused.
Sure. So I'm not sure if how I testified with respect to the numbers was exactly what you mentioned back, but let's just walk through it. So looking at lot 2.01,
right.
These 21 spaces in front of the building are definitely customers' parking spaces. That's what they're used for. Probably even these 5 along here, although they may put inventory in these 5, they currently have inventory on the side of the existing building. These 10 spaces along the rear are for delivery. So when a customer purchases a vehicle, they bring the cars, they park them here, and then the customer comes out there, and that's kind of where they leave from. So those are really the spaces that are proposed. And I believe the number is
35 maybe?
36.
Mm-hmm.
It was in my notes. But I think I said 36. I think it was 55 are required. On lot 2.0 or lot 5, there's something like 57 existing parking spaces in and around this area, and we're really just proposing the stacked and some new striped out parking over here, and stacked parking back here. This is all inventory and or parking for vehicles that are being serviced. Typically, the customers are not driving back there. This is all employee driving and parking these vehicles. And there's 51 proposed parking spaces back there.
Okay.
Where are the New Jersey Department of Transportation's leased spaces in relation to that on that site plan?
Yeah. So that's not all fully clearly delineated here, but because the survey didn't really have everything striped out properly, or
just a general area, because I want the board to understand that those spaces are available for the applicant.
Right.
And maybe you can clarify who uses them, but they are not included in the calculation. So that's something you need to realize, that while there's a technical shortage,
right,
you look for the requirement, these spaces are readily available, I imagine.
Right. Okay. So one parcel is this small triangle that is DOT property. And there's like 4 existing parking spaces in it. And, we have 3 kind of partially in it now. And this one is kind of partially in it. And then DOT has control of what would be from here back, which is this Rahway Valley Unclassified Railroad main line. And so there's a whole bunch they have leased to park in all here. So they currently put what it appears to me is a lot of inventory parking there. Probably when the owner speaks, he can just clarify some of that. And then that right away kind of breaks in 2 directions. And there is some parking to the left along the fence as you go back in on the right of way along here. So they put inventory back in here. They have control over this lot, which is not fully shown on this exhibit. I mean, this exhibit here can probably show this a little more accurately.
So while you
in fact,
say
this is a very helpful exhibit.
Yes, it is. While you say there's like it might be a trouble area in terms of parking, it's really enough parking spaces. Really, like we can go elsewhere if it.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Did I say the word troubled area? I didn't mean to.
Yes, I wrote that down. Yes. Yes, I just wanted to, be sure, but no, it sounds much clearer now. Thank you.
Call that a troubled presentation. Thank you. No, yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe I meant it's challenging to analyze. That's probably what I meant to say.
Oh, okay.
It's challenging to analyze how the parking is on this site because they have the rights to park on lots that are not their lots and they're overlapping with each other. So one parking space might be on one lot and partially on another. And so there's just a lot going on. Whereas
I just asked because one thing about our zoning board, a sensitive subject is parking. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other board members with questions of Mr. Tyner?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Powell.
Mr. Tyner, you mentioned about the digital sign that's going to be on the roof. You want to replace that. Mr. Manguso called it to your attention that if it's down, it stays down. What was your resolve to that? You want to put it back up and it's the same thing? Because we have a thing of digital signs going back into the area.
Yeah, well, I mean, my resolve at the moment is from an engineering perspective that the application is proposing it to be reinstalled on the new building.
And that's the application. That's the rendering that we hadn't seen prior to this meeting. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. This rendering wouldn't have been seen. Although my site plans do call out that sign and identify it to be reinstalled on the building.
Okay.
That'd be on like, well, you can see it here on Our site plan as submitted, which is sheet, I can't even see it on the screen here. What is this? Sheet 6. Relocate in kind existing digital screen on top of proposed building. So that's what that represents.
Mr. Howe, Mr. Sisuli will talk about that and the importance and how it's important for their business. And yes, it is essentially replacing in kind.
Thank you.
Are there any other board members with questions of Mr. Tyner? Hearing none, I'd like to open it up to the public. If there are any members of the public that would like to question the testimony of this witness, Mr. Joshua Tyner, they can call or text Mr. Anthony Manguso at 908-721-1002. Again, that's 908-721-1002.
This is Rob Pansul, the board attorney. I just want to make sure, Mr. Tyner, that you provide those originals that we marked either through Mr. Hale's office so we can get them down here physically to mark them as we transition back to in-person. That's one of the things we got to keep a hold of as exhibits.
Absolutely. Yep, we'll get them all sorted out and marked and sent over.
So I have it through A10. It's 5 through 10. It was the additional from what I had originally marked. Yeah, all the way through 10.
Yep, I have 10. Yep, that's what I have.
Mr. Champion, I believe we've waited the allotted time. It doesn't appear, unless Mr. Manguso can correct me, that there's any public commentary for questions, and we probably can move on.
Sure. Since there are no public questions at this time, Mr. Hale, would you like to proceed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd now like to call upon Marco D'Souza. D'Souza, who is our architect, and I see him in the lower left box. So.
Mr. D'Souza, can you hear me? It's Rob Pansul, the board attorney.
Yes, I can.
Can I ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
If you could state and spell your name for the record with your business affiliation.
My name is Marco D'Souza. It's M-A-R-C-O, capital D, lowercase e, capital S-O-U-S-A. I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey with currently an active license. Do you need my home address?
No, your business.
I work for Redcom Design and Construction. I am the director of architecture, and I've been employed with the company since 2006.
Thank you.
And Mr. D'Souza, if you could briefly give, as Mr. Tyner did, work, sure, educational background, licenses you hold, and whether you've qualified before the boards or courts in the state of New Jersey.
Like I mentioned, I am registered in the state of New Jersey. I received a bachelor's of architecture degree from Virginia Tech. I have 29 years experience in the field of architecture with various firms in Union and Essex counties. And I have worked on, I would say, about 30 car dealership projects while employed with Redcom, including other Hyundai projects in Flemington and Freehold, New Jersey. I have been before other planning boards and provided testimony. The most recent being for Woodbridge Township for a project that was approved. That's my credentials.
Mr. Hale will accept his qualifications as stated.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right. Mr. Souza, if you could briefly take us through the floor plans and elevations for the new building that's proposed.
I would like to share the rendering. which has already been tagged as A8, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I'll start my presentation with this rendering. So this rendering is showing the building looking from a vantage point of from Route 22, looking north at the building. The top of the building is clad with a bronze color metal panel system with a non-linear black reveal pattern. The panels are cantilevered over the glass exterior wall, which is the showroom portion of the building. The panels, like I said, create an overhang around the perimeter of the showroom for visual effect. Now, mounted on the metal panels, there are the proposed signs, which are the Maxon, the Hyundai, and the Service. There is a smaller fourth sign adjacent to the front door, mounted on bronze panels there. From the ground level to the overhang, we are proposing full height curtain wall system comprised of clear glass and a clear anodized aluminum mullions. The vertical joints will be a butt joints spaced at 5 feet on center with a clear silicone material. We will have horizontal mullions at a just beyond the midpoint over the entrance element, and they will be expressed to the exterior, unlike the butt joint, the vertical butt joints which will only be seen the aluminum material on the inside. The front entrance here is centrally located on the south-facing wall and will consist of a tapered bronze metal panel frame element to indicate the entrance to the building. The curtain wall system will turn the corner on both ends, and it will follow the perimeter of the showroom on both the west and east walls. The vehicle, there will be vehicle entrance doors, which will also serve as exit doors from the showroom on both the east and the west walls. The shorter building element on the east end will function as the service drive. The service drive will have 2 high-speed doors, front and matching 2 on the rear of that building. These high-speed doors are coiling elements, and they're comprised of clear panels with a horizontal aluminum frame. There will also be a clear glass and aluminum entrance door from the parking lot into the service drive. The exterior walls of the service drive below the bronze metal panels will be composed of an ephes finish, which is a stucco-like material, and it will be in a color which the brand calls antler velvet, which is basically a beige color. And I think that's my description for the rendering. I'd like now to move on to the floor plans. And, these floor plans were submitted to the board, So the main building measures 105 along the front and 115 feet deep. The service drive is set back about 47'6" from the showroom front wall on the east end, and it measures 31.5 feet by 48 foot deep. There is an 845 square foot overhang around the showroom exterior walls. So it starts here on the back side of the showroom on the west end and goes towards the front and along the entire front, and then back around on the east side until it dies at the beginning of the service drive. There will be a new vehicle delivery area at the rear of the building, which is shown here. It is an exterior space, which is approximately 2,638 square feet, measuring 105 foot, 4 inches wide by 25 feet deep. It is a covered canopy supported by 3 columns. And behind the service drive, there will be a 19 foot 5 inches deep exterior space with a covered canopy as well. And this will function as additional service drive customer drop-off area. The interior of the building consists of a vestibule here at the front door, the showroom, customer lounge area, which is a spine from the showroom back to the rear wall, consists of some finance and insurance offices, various administrative offices, toilet rooms, a break room, a service write-up area adjacent to the service drive. That is the layout for the floor plan. I'd like to move on to these exterior elevations. Start with the front facade, which is the south-facing elevation. As I previously explained during the walkthrough of the rendering, we have full height curtain wall system with the bronze metal panels along the top, the building signage, and the service drive on the right. The east elevation here is showing us on the left, the showroom side of the building, which is facing east, is showing the service drive with the exterior windows and the bronze metal panel band along the top. Beyond that, we have bronze metal panels which are cladding the canopy overhang behind the service drive. And at the far right, in the background, there is the vehicle delivery canopy, which runs along the entire back of the building. And then as we move on to the rear wall of the building, which is facing north, we have the 2 overhead doors of the service drive with the bronze metal panels along the top. We have bronze metal panels along the overhang of the vehicle delivery area, supported by 3 columns. And then in the background, we have the the wall with the office areas with windows and doors facing north. Finally, the west elevation, we can see the west facing showroom wall, once again with the bronze panels and the full height curtain wall glass. And then in the center, we have the office area with it has the bottom 4 feet is a split face CMU band with a light brown finish. That's also the case, I forgot to mention, on the rear wall. We also have, for maintenance purposes, we're introducing a split face CMU band below the ephes walls. And that'll be the same concept here. So a light brown finish on that split face with beige ephes finish above, and then some square windows from the offices in clear glass and a clear anodized aluminum, which is a silver finish. So that is a description, a brief description of the showroom building. And now I would like to move on to the service building. And so these are new exhibits, which I would like to tag. And if you could give me a designation.
A11 is where we're at.
A11, okay. And I would like to then, the floor plan will be A11 and the elevations will be A12.
Are these different than what you submitted with the package?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. A11 was what, the floor plan?
The floor plan, and it's a SK-10A is the name of the the indication on the drawing, and then exterior elevations SK-10B. The A12. Okay. The service building is mainly a renovation with demolition. So there is a removal of a portion of the existing building area at the southwest corner of the building. It is being removed, and due to its removal, we have to construct new exterior walls to close in that removed building area. There will be, the building will function mainly the same as it's functioning now. There is, for better use of the building, we will provide new overhead doors at the west wall, which is this drawing lower plan south here. And there'll be a new entrance door here which will provide access for customers to the parts counter for transactions, purchasing the parts. The rest of the building will be used by the employees for service functions. The next drawing is the exterior elevations, which mainly the new areas, like I mentioned, on the south elevation, we have a new exterior wall being constructed on the left side here, which will consist of an ephes finish with the Hyundai material palette, which will be that antler velvet, the beige color. The north elevation will be existing, and the east elevation also will remain existing, except for painting of the exterior wall. And then the west elevation here will be introducing some new overhead doors and the other new ephes wall to close up the building after the demolition is done. And that's the description for the service building.
Okay, thank you, Mr. D'Souza. And I have no further preliminary questions at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any board members that would like to question Mr. D'Souza's testimony?
Mr. Chairman, just one question, please.
Sure.
Mr. D'Souza, how come this wasn't submitted before?
We submitted drawings before, but then we noticed that when we had some issues with the program, and what was sent to the printer had a lot of omissions on it, and I thought that it wouldn't be right to present that to the board because it wouldn't be indicative of what the actual conditions were. So I apologize for that. But I felt that this would be a more accurate representation of what's out there, and it wouldn't lead to any confusion.
So are you of the opinion that the project site particularly suited to handle the proposed use?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other board members that would like to question Mr. D'Souza's testimony? Hearing none at this time, we can open it up to the public again. Again, if there are any members of the public that would like to question Mr. D'Souza's testimony that he has given, they can call or text Mr. Anthony Manguso at 908-721-1002. Again, that number is 908-721-1002.
Mr. D'Souza, too, this is Rob Pansula, the board attorney. Just make sure, as I told the engineer, to get the exhibits we marked over to council so it could be hard copies could be submitted and made a part of the formal record.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Pansula, we'll make sure that's done.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Everything's good. No,
Okay, thank you.
didn't get any calls.
Okay, having no questions from the public, Mr. Hale, would you like to proceed?
Yes, and I'm going to move my screen over. And I'd like to introduce the gentleman to my left, who I know a bunch of you know, Mr. Michael Chiusoli, who will testify about the facility and operational. So you're going to have to be sworn, Michael.
Okay.
Mr. Chiusoli, can you hear me? It's Rob Pansula, the board attorney.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Can I ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, sir.
You just state and spell your name for the record with your business affiliation.
It is Michael Chiusoli, Michael Ciasulli, and I am president and owner of the Maxon Auto Group.
Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Chiusoli, obviously we've heard the testimony so far. If you could briefly give a little background on the Maxon and history of this site, and then the importance of the investment that you're now making to improve the site.
Maxon originally was in Hillside. It was my dad's. He brought it out to Route 22 in 1963, where the existing plant at Honda is now. He was Maxim Pontiac at the time. As time went on, we acquired some other franchises and stuff, and we moved west down the highway. We acquired the Buick GMC truck building, and then we acquired where we are currently now, which we're talking about this building. For those who may remember, this was actually the old Gelb carpet building. So it goes way. It was actually Dean Carpet. I apologize.
Right.
Dean building back in the 60s. So this building, I imagine, was built sometime in the late 50s. We renovated it in the late 90s when we moved Hyundai and Mazda into there, and it's been basically that building ever since. Since that time, the manufacturers have come up with identity and facility programs in order to have the look that they're looking to desire. Every manufacturer, pretty much, as you see, different manufacturers, they all have that look that they're looking to have. This is Hyundai's, facility program that they want to have. They feel, based on some very exhaustive studies, that this is a great customer experience. They were very involved with the planning and the layout and the design of the building. We had to get everything approved through them. We made some significant improvements to our existing layout, where we moved the building actually on a different part of the site from where it is right now. We did that to accommodate some additional spacing on parking and stuff like that to improve the customer experience. Basically, we feel that this is, the next step and the next thing that we need to do in order to service our customers and in order to be, current with our current facility manufacturer requirements.
And just briefly, I know it's indicated right now it's two different services, the two different franchises.
Correct.
Briefly explain to the board why it's going to the single.
Right. Originally, we have a Mazda franchise and a Hyundai franchise. Originally, we were going to try and put two separate buildings on this site. We felt that based on the layout and based on the utilization of the site, we felt that it would be a little bit difficult to service customers with that type of configuration. So we decided to sell off one of the franchises. We decided to do the Mazda. We feel that Hyundai is probably the better of the franchises to move forward with. We will be eliminating the Mazda franchise, and we felt that we would just be much more efficient and a much better customer situation if we went exclusive with just Hyundai.
Okay. And this new layout that's been subscribed, actually, importantly, is a better customer experience, better flow and the like throughout the site?
Yes, 100%. I mean, especially with the way we repositioned the building, because we actually moved it back a bit, and it actually opens up the front, and it makes it much, much easier for customers to come in and visit the store.
And again, you've indicated you've worked with Hyundai on the design, the look, the building, and also the importance of the signage that's proposed as part of this all needs not only their approval, but you worked with them on this.
Right. Everything that is mentioned on here are required elements. They have a set of required elements that they want in all of their stores in order to have this consistency of a look of their dealerships throughout the country. So these additional signs and things that we are talking about are all required elements that they have, that they're telling us that we need to have in order for us to be compliant with their facility program.
Okay, great. And you've had an opportunity to review the letter both from fire, which I know has been addressed, sorry, I'm off the screens here. And also the Collier's letter, and no problem complying with any of those terms and conditions?
No issue whatsoever. In addition, we also control the large back piece in the back, and there is a lot of parking back there, which we will be utilizing for our employees and for any overflow. So as far as parking in general, we're really in a very good position on that, because in the back area, which is adjacent to our property, we have room for literally hundreds and hundreds of cars.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chiusuli. Mr. Chairman, I have no further preliminary questions of Mr. Chiusuli at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chiusuli and Mr. Hale. Are there any board members that would like to question Mr. Chiusuli's testimony? Hearing none, the board is going to open it up to the public again. If there are any members of the public that would like to question Mr. Chiusuli's testimony, which he has just given, they can call Mr. Anthony Manguso at 908-721-1002. Are we good, Mr. Manguso?
Yes, all clear.
Mr. Hale, would you like to proceed with your next witness?
Yes, and I'm going to call a familiar face, maybe not as familiar as Mr. Steiger, but his counterpart, Mr. Craig Paraguay, who I know has testified many times before this board as a traffic engineer. So, Craig, I see you there in the lower right.
The upper left one.
Can you hear me? It's Rob Pansul, the board attorney.
Yes, I hear you.
Can I ask you to swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
For the record, your name, state and spell your name with your business affiliation.
Sure. My name is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, Paraguay, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y, with Dynamic Traffic, 245 Main Street, Chester, New Jersey.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Paraguay, if you could please give the board the benefit of your work, educational experience, and licenses you hold, whether you've been accepted as a professional in traffic engineering before their boards. And again, I know you've been before this board.
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I now understand I'm the second Hokie on the team here tonight. I've been working as a traffic engineer for over 20 years now, testified pretty much on a nightly basis as an expert in traffic, and I've testified in union a number of times. And license is current and in good standing.
We'll accept his credentials, Mr. Hale.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Paraguay, I know you've submitted findings that were updated after the revisions to the plans. If you could briefly provide an overview of those findings.
Sure. What we do is take a look at the traffic impact, parking, and circulation. Obviously, just briefly on the traffic impact, I mean, you have an existing car dealership here. It's just being renovated to improve the existing customer base. We're not creating new Hyundai shoppers in town. So realistically, you're not going to see any substantial change in traffic impact. The DOT looks at the size of the building, the square footage of the building, to determine the traffic volumes. At one point in an earlier iteration, we had a larger building. We submitted to the DOT. They said, yeah, we don't need a new permit. They gave us a letter of no interest. Now at this point, we're basically at a wash in the building size. So from both the practical and a technical standpoint, this isn't going to create any significant increase in traffic. I think where this application really shines is the improvement in the circulation on the site and the modernization of the building to be more what you'd customarily see at a modern car dealership. A couple things that I think to highlight that are really the best features. Under the existing conditions, that customer parking area in the front has angled parking. So it's essentially one way from east to west. So if you come into that second driveway, the only way you can get to the customer parking is going the wrong way in that parking area on a one-way aisle, or circulating around the back of the building and again going the wrong way in a one-way parking aisle to get back into the parking lot. What we're proposing in the modernized condition is a 90-degree parking two-way aisle, so you can access that customer parking space, customer parking area from either driveway much more efficiently. And we are actually picking up one additional parking space. There's 20 today. We'll have 21 in the front in the future. The other big improvement is the service access, being able to pull in and there's an immediate, hey, here's where I go for service. Here's the garage doors that, again, you typically see at more modern car dealerships. The way it works today is you have to drive around the back of the house again, essentially, to get to that service building. And there's a lot of activity behind a car dealership between shuttling service vehicles back and forth and bringing out new cars for delivery. So to the extent you can keep that customer parking and service access in the front, I think is a big improvement over the existing condition that you have there today. So those are the two things that I think are certainly beneficial. Mr. Tyner's testimony, he mentioned the difficulty in parking, and what he was meaning was it's difficult to count the number of parking spaces that are on the site today because striping's worn or faded. There's seas of open pavement where vehicles are just stored. So we're correcting that condition too and creating a typical circulation pattern, striped parking spaces to get a little bit better organization for that back of the house activity as well. In terms of the number of spaces, I know we're asking for technically asking for a variance, but if I use the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers parking data, which is based on the building square footage, based on their research, the average peak parking demand of a facility this size would be 56 parking spaces, whereas we have 128, so more than double. You heard the prior testimony of the operator. There's ample additional parking as needed. They can keep their employees out of these specific properties and in the back. You have the spaces in the DOT right away. So certainly from a parking supply standpoint, more than enough. And again, we're picking up one more additional customer space along with that improved circulation. So overall, from a traffic impact perspective and circulation perspective, this is 100% improvement. It's going to function much better than it does today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paraguay. Again, Mr. Chairman, no further questions of Mr. Paraguay at this time.
Are there any board members that would like to question Mr. Paraguay's testimony?
No, I would just like to say thank you. You cleared up a lot. Thank you.
Good.
Any other comments from the board, from any other board members? Hearing none, again, I'd like to open it up to the public. If there are any members of the public that would like to question Mr. Paraguay's testimony, which he has just given, they can call Mr. Anthony Manguso or text him at 908-721-1002.
Nothing.
Mr. Hale, would you like to proceed with your next witness?
Yes, I'd like to call upon our final witness, our professional planner, Mr. Nicholas Graviano.
Good evening, Mr. Graviano. Can you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide this evening is the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
And please state your name and spell it for the record with your business affiliation.
Yes, my first name is Nicholas with an H, last name Graviano, G-R-A, V as in Victor, I-A-N-O. I am a partner and planner with Graviano and Gillis Architects and Planners with a business address of 101 Crawford's Corner Road in Holmdel, New Jersey.
Thank you.
And Mr. Graviano, I know this board is well familiar with you as a professional planner, but briefly provide your credentials and confirm that your licenses are in full force and effect and you've been accepted as a professional planner before this and other boards throughout the state of New Jersey.
Yes, certainly. Bachelor's degree from Rutgers, master's degree from Rutgers, law degree from Temple University, licensed professional planner in New Jersey. License is still valid, as well as the AICP certification.
The board will accept Mr. Graviano's testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, Mr. Graviano, if you could please provide an overview of the planning justification for the variances associated with this application, recognizing it's obviously an existing automobile dealership that's being upgraded and generally to remain.
Yes, certainly, Mr. Hale, and I'll keep this brief as the previous professionals before me did a very detailed and descriptive job in describing the relief that's required this evening based on the Collier's letter. Essentially, what you have before you tonight is an applicant requesting preliminary and final site plan approval with associated C and D variances for the reconstruction, reconfiguration of an existing automobile dealership site. The sites are located at Block 3209, Lot 1, Block 3210, Lots 2.01, 4, and 5. As you heard in previous testimony, this is a split zoned scenario where a portion of the property is located in the BC district and the rear portion of the property is located in the I industrial district. Neither one of those districts are specifically permitted to have automobile sales. However, the I district does permit repair facilities. The repair facility is primarily in the I industrial district. So we're going to go through the D1 analysis for the automobile sales for all of the lots. As you know, the board has the power to grant D1 variances in particular cases and for special reasons. That's the positive criteria of the D1 variance. In a non-inherently beneficial application such as this one, the standard we have to employ is to determine whether special reasons have been proven. The site promotes the general welfare and the property is particularly suited for the very use proposed. The applicant does not need to demonstrate that there are other viable locations for the project. In terms of the negative criteria, the board can exercise its power to grant the variance unless the negative criteria has been satisfied, with showing that there's not a substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance. Looking at the particular suitability, and you heard Mr. D'Souza answer the question asked for him, it was certainly, in his opinion, a particularly suited use for the site. It's in my opinion as well. It's located on the Route 22 corridor. We've all been down the Route 22 corridor hundreds of times. It's certainly an appropriate location for such use. The site has accommodated and currently accommodates an automobile sales and service use, and it's located within the vicinity of similar uses. For all those reasons, it's certainly a particularly suitable use for the location. Looking at the purposes of zoning in the municipal land use law, it advances purpose A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use of lands in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Here you have a modernization and improvement of the existing building and site. Also, the building will be built to modern standards and building codes. And you have an applicant here that is investing in the community, promoting the general welfare by improving the commercial corridor and providing opportunities for employment for area residents. It also advances purpose G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate location for a variety of commercial uses in order to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. And as you heard through previous testimony and the reconfiguration of the new building and site, it's certainly sufficient space for the proposed automobile sales and repair use. And the highway location is an appropriate location for such use. Lastly, this certainly promotes a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. And that's mainly done by improving the circulation, clearly delineating the parking areas, and making other site improvements that make it a more beneficial site for both visitors and employees alike. When looking at the master plan, this site is designated as corridor commercial on the land use map of the 2021 master plan. This is certainly a use that is in keeping with the corridor commercial uses which are highlighted for the Route 22 corridor. There's certainly, in my opinion, not a substantial detriment to the zone plan, as this is a retail sales environment that contains cars in a parking lot, which is no different than many of the permitted land use of the districts, which would have retail uses with parking lots in front and side and the back of the buildings. The Collier's letter also identified a D2 variance for lot 2.01, in that the applicant is expanding and modifying the existing facility. This is also a variance where the applicant must show special reasons. It certainly advances the same purpose of zoning that I highlighted in the D1 analysis. In terms of the D2 variance, I must note that the special reasons warranting the variance may be found that the variance, if granted, would tend to minimize nonconformities and make it more acceptable in its particular setting. And I certainly think the applicant's improved building and improved site make it more acceptable in its particular setting than as it sits today. Lastly, when looking at the third D variances highlighted in the review letter, a D3 variance was indicated for lot 5. This is a D3 variance that's a result of being within 1,500 feet of another service or repair facility. When you look at the D3 variance, the focus must be on whether conditions can be imposed to ensure that the deviations from the conditional use requirements do not cause a substantial detriment to the public good. And certainly you'll see not only in Union, but in many of the communities across the state of New Jersey, automobile sales and service facilities are located within close proximity to each other. And certainly as the automobile sales and service industry has advanced and people now lease vehicles more than they have in past, these are services that are intertwined, and certainly I do not see any substantial detriment to the public good by allowing the sales and service location at this particular site. The Collier's letter also identifies numerous C variances due to the existing conditions of the site. They can certainly be granted under the C1 criteria, and that strict application of the Township zoning ordinance would create an undue hardship upon the applicant. All of the variances created by this application can be granted under the C2 criteria, whereas hardship need not be demonstrated. What must be demonstrated that it relates to a specific piece of property. Here you have an existing automobile sales and repair dealership. That purposes of zoning could be advanced by the proposal. Certainly it advances the same proposal as the same purposes as the D variances, purposes A, G, and I. And these variances can be granted without substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance as well.
Thank you, Mr. Graviano. Appreciate your testimony. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions at this time, Mr. Graviano.
Are there any members of the board that would like to question Mr. Graviano's testimony?
Mr. Chairman, just one question for Mr. Graviano. Sir, is it safe to assume that the project site is particularly suited to handle the proposed use of the potential detrimental effects that may arise from the proposed improvements?
Mr. Howe, I certainly feel that this site is particularly suited for the proposed use. I do not see any substantial detriment to the public good as a result of this application. And I feel that all of the D and C variance relief requested by the applicant can be done without substantial impairment to the zone plan or zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Graviano.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Howe.
Are there any other board members that would like to question Mr. Graviano's testimony? Hearing none, the board will at this time will open it up to the public again. If any members of the public would like to question the testimony that Mr. Graviano has just given, they may call or text Mr. Anthony Manguso at 908-721-1002.
Good.
All right, again, I'd like to open it up to the public. If the public has any general comments that they would like to make to any one of the witnesses or their testimonies, they can do so now, again, by calling Mr. Anthony Manguso at 908-721-1002.
No. So we're all good.
Hearing none, Mr. Hale, would you like to sum up?
Yes, just briefly, Mr. Chairman. And we truly, again, appreciate the board taking the time to have a special meeting this evening. This is a great investment in the Township of Union. Michael, seated to my left, the business has been there for many years. The aesthetic improvements are significant. Certainly it's an apropos place for an automobile dealership, and certainly the variances have been justified. We have no problem complying again with any of the terms and conditions in the Collier letter or the fire department. And we look forward to the board granting this application and seeing the new dealership building at this location. So thank you again for your time and look forward to the board approving this application.
Right, at this time, I believe we can conference this application. Mr. Howe, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aesthetically, what is proposed will be considered an improvement to the property and the area through the resulting upgrades. And the proposal is beneficial to the community as it supports the applicant's local business and is going to allow the site to be continually utilized. So my approval shall be subject to the compliance with the conditions set forth in the Township Engineers Report and the Fire Department. I'm going to vote yes.
Ms. Alexander.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel that each of you defended the proposal very well. And I do feel that the improvements outweigh the negativeness, and especially the no parking issue, as it won't create any increase in traffic. What I do think is wonderful that the changes are great for the customer experience. And I feel that it's also a change that's mandatory, that when you own a franchise, they require you to do it. So I am in agreement that this is a very good proposal, defended well, and I'll be voting yes. Thank you.
Mr. Wiley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I feel like this here is a suitable use for this location. I see no detriment to the public. And as Mr. Howell said, aesthetically, it's a great improvement. So I'm going to vote yes for this application as well.
Ms. Martins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The variances proposed tonight have been well justified. This shows to be a great improvement to the current site that's there and the design as well. So I will be voting yes.
Mr. Bentavenga.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on the testimony and the new improvements specified tonight, I think this is a good, clean application. I'm also going to vote yes tonight.
And Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree. I think the testimony from all the experts was very good. Also that the site was already a car dealership and it's going to be a better car dealership now with the new aesthetics and additional parking. So I think yes, good application, and I will also be voting yes. Thank you.
As for myself, this is a great and very positive application. It's going to be a great improvement to the site. All the variances that were requested by the applicant, I feel are justified because this property is well suited for the proposed use, and it's going to be beneficial to the business, their customers, and our community. I see no negative aspects of this application. All the positive and negative criteria have been met. So I too will vote yes for this application. Can I have a motion to grant the application at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board grant the variances applicable to this application and that council is directed to prepare a resolution consistent with the board's findings.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Roll call, Mr. Manguso.
Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Mr. Wiley,
Yes.
Ms. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Martins,
Yes.
Mr. Bentavegana,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Champy,
Yes.
April 13th, Steve, I'll do the resolution of approval at our next meeting.
Yeah, and I'll be there, so it'll be great to see everybody in person. Again, Anthony, stop making faces. So thanks, everyone, and have a great night. And again, appreciate you having a special meeting tonight. Now, wait.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll make it beautiful and we won't disappoint you guys. I promise.
Good.
Good luck to you, Mr. Chizzuli.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, there being no further business to come before the board at this time, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Our next meeting will be 2 weeks from today, Wednesday, April 13th, at the Municipal Building.
That's correct.
Enter through the back